growing up, I used to watch a lot of TV shows, okay? But there's one TV show that I think that me and my sister used to follow the most. And that was Doctor Who. So I wanted to see if the best rated Doctor Who episode still holds up or not. Episode in question obviously is season 3, episode 10, Blink. So on a rewatch, Blink feels like a very different episode, but I still see why it is still so iconic. I think one thing that surprised me about the episode is actually how slowly it builds up to the ending, and how actually the episode develops with a lot of great care and importance to the characters that are involved in the story. To illustrate this point, I think the two best examples are that of Nightingale and the police officer. Both these examples, aside from being developed so well and handled with such great care for the characters themselves, also illustrate the true danger that the Weeping Angels possess. They basically robbed Sally from a best friend and a potential romantic interest. And while they both lived fulfilling lives when they went back to the past, one can imagine the panic and anxiety they would have felt when they were transported back to another time and effectively a different world altogether. I think this episode is also one of the few times when you realize that the Doctor is actually just helpless, in helping someone in the line of danger, because he and Martha themselves were sent back in time. And so Sally Sparrow effectively becomes the unlikely hero in this story because she was able to send the TARDIS back to 1969. And also, she is the one who in the future actually hands over all the information to the Doctor in the first place. I think Blink as an episode also has this perfect balance, I think, between driving the plot forward but also creating great moments of tension. For example, when Sally finds the key, and there are these small moments where the angels move when Sally is not looking. And also just the sound of the Weeping Angels moving in the form of the screechy violins is still so iconic. Like, it's still so good. Blink as an episode is brilliant in every manner. Literally feels like a Twilight Zone episode. And I think what makes it so amazing is how isolated it is from the rest of the episodes. Like, Blink is not carrying something forward, nor is it developing any plot for a future episode or an overarching plot of the season of Doctor Who. It is singularly a strong, brilliant experience that introduces us to one of the most iconic Doctor Who villains, and honestly probably one of the most recognizable villains / creatures in science fiction, honestly. Like, if I ever see a statue even remotely resembling a Weeping Angel, I instantly think of this episode and just the entire lore of the Weeping Angels. Carey Mulligan was amazing in this episode, and I think it was important for her to be really good in this episode because there's no David Tennant, sort of to drive the episode forward, right? He's stuck in the past. And so Carey Mulligan really shines in this episode. Like, from the first minute to the last minute, I think she really carries this episode and pulls it off brilliantly with her interactions with all the other characters that are involved in the episode. And I think the episode is still so good even after all these years. I think the number one spot for the best Doctor Who episode is definitely this episode. I think this episode perfectly encapsulates why this show is amazing. And I think when I watched this episode in the past, it was always about the Weeping Angels, right? Because they're the scare element of the episode. But as I was rewatching it, I actually grew to appreciate all the narratives surrounding the characters in this episode and how they were tied to Sally, and how the Weeping Angels, effectively robbed her from these people because they were sent back to the past. And so the scare element of the Weeping Angels just becomes so much more amplified when you realize how they rob people of, their loved ones or people that they care for. It's just not about them being able to move when you're not looking. It's about when they actually send people that you love back in the past, and you're effectively severing that tie, you're severing that relationship, which is a very eerie, ability for a Doctor Who creature to have. But it's iconic. The Weeping Angels are iconic, this episode's still iconic, and I think it's still deserving of the #1 spot as the best Doctor Who episode. And yeah, I guess that's the video. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. It's free for you, but it's prices for me. Go check out my music and go drink some coffee.